Angela Rayner could lose her seat to Nigel Farage's Reform UK at the next general election, according to a bombshell poll. The Deputy Prime Minister, who has held her Ashton-under-Lyme seat in the northwest of England since 2015, would be one of 238 Labour MPs to be booted out of Parliament, based on the data collected by Electoral Calculus on behalf of PLMR. The astonishing poll, which is based on a sample size of more than 5,700 people, puts Reform on 24% of the vote, with Labour and Conservatives tied on 23%. In terms of seats, Mr Farage's insurgent force would win 175 seats, while the Tories would take 178 and Labour 174. Ms Rayner is not the only Labour heavyweight who could lose based on the Electoral Calculus poll. Health Secretary Wes Streeting would lose Ilford North to the Tories, Home Secretary Yvette Cooper would be ousted from Pontefract, Castleford and Nottingley and replaced with a Reform MP. Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds would lose his seats Stalybridge and Hyde to Reform as well. Kevin Craig, founder of PLMR, who commissioned the poll said, "Of course, there is a long, long way to go until the next election. History is littered with British governments who were unpopular in the initial years and who then turned it around. Labour knows very well what it needs to deliver in order to win again." This poll shows multiple challenges for the two established parties as Reform UK continues to show momentum and is picking up support from disillusioned Labour and Conservative voters in economically struggling areas. A three-way split of the vote is practically unheard of in British politics and points to shifts in the political makeup of the United Kingdom. The Conservative Party will be particularly concerned that they are not able to move ahead of Labour in the polls as the official opposition. If the Labour government succeeds in its mission to grow the economy and inject optimism into the economic fortunes of households, I have no doubt they can turn things around, especially if the vote on the right remains so divided. Martin Baxter, founder of Electoral Calculus, said, "Our survey shows an unprecedented three-way tie at the top of British politics. If there were a general election tomorrow, any of the three parties could come out on top but would be unlikely to have an overall majority. This represents a massive change in public opinion since the general election just 7 months ago." Here is a summary of internet users' reactions. "She's got to get out for that election. Ashton, as part of Tameside, under her watch has nefariously been trying to convince High Peak, Glossop, and Buxton to become part of a unitary council, throwing in the option of Stockport as the alternative. Both Tameside and Stockport are boroughs of Greater Manchester. The former areas are certainly Manchester commuter belt, but lay within the county of Derbyshire and have their own charm that would initially be prized by Manchester, before being stripped of the monies to maintain them. Obviously the dire need to save her bacon has not materialised to date, uncharacteristically quiet, or is this just me? But with Thurrock and Essex and the rest of the postponed elections setting precedent, and talks having been established even if one way, and GM elections not due until next year anyway, do you reckon democracy will run its natural course? The UK is still the best place in the world, I haven't given up on it, and the majority of our people are still decent, kind, human beings. It's the others who are letting us down and we need shot of them. Then we have a chance. I find it strange too that I know nobody in Northern Ireland, but I feel like I lost family when the Tories stitched them up. We're going to fight for you too, my Northern Irish friends. It just wasn't right what they did. We're not having it. I've done all right for myself and I now feel guilty about it." "But why do you ask?" "Well, because I was brought up in a council house in South Yorkshire, and my parents had to work their nads off to bring up 4 very grateful kids. I have lived that life of rented slot TVs, hiding from someone knocking on the door collecting money, tin bath and an outside loo. 2 up 2 down, bread and dripping for breakfast, playing in derelict buildings. And I feel like a fraud now when I see people like me, but not getting the breaks I got, being attacked by politicians who don't care. It's just not good enough. Governments can turn around their fortunes, but I have never seen one so adversely unpopular due to its actions in first 6 months either were not in its manifesto or the reverse of what it had promised, while clearly preferring the public sector over other electoral groups. Voters have long memories and it is not as though Labour won with large numbers of voters physically switching to it from other parties. It won on fewer votes than Corbyn in 2019 due mainly to over 3 million 2019 voters staying home, just as they did in earlier by-elections. With both Tories and Labour having destroyed trust and credibility, Reform will be the beneficiary. already second in 98 mainly red wall seats and cancelling local elections when proposed changes have not even been tabled in Parliament will fuel distrust in Labour and support for reform. There is nothing wrong with the majority view and a populist party. It's what the majority want. The left can castigate that term as much as they like, but it's true. Populism, politics, is the will of the people. Listen, you MPs, you won't do this again. Never will the British public trust you. I've cancelled my rates last night and I won't pay until you let our local council constituents vote. Watch as MPs start to switch. Oil and gas are weapons in the hands of the nation's enemies, as has been shown by Russia most recently and OPEC in the past. As demand grows and demand dwindles, imagine the competition for such resources in the future unless alternatives are developed beforehand. The reform idea of clinging to the Morris Minor is a dangerous mistake. Let's make it simple. Reform will reduce taxes, get rid of net zero, and deliver Brexit properly. Labour will talk about multi-genders, diversity, and carbon emissions. The shelves formerly holding beef, lamb, and pork will be replaced with almond milk and avocados. And okay, I accept not many can put a joint of beef on the table anymore. Farage wants to allow one person into the country for every person who leaves. We do this now. He also wants everyone to have health insurance. What about people who cannot afford health insurance because they already pay for everything they need? How would they get insurance if they have health issues? Many people in this country, especially those on low wages and relying on benefits, believe he would prioritize the top 1% over the poorest. People age plus 56 years will, unfortunately, have consciously experienced just how dire things can get under a disastrous Labour government as a result of their attempted Sovietisation of the UK during 1974-79. It's why I can never trust people like Keir Starmer and senior Labour MPs who remember how bad it was but continue that same destructive political ideology. Keir Starmer could well be the last Labour MP to win a general election. The British people see in Farage one of their own. In Starmer they see the type of upper-class Lord Topknot who is completely divorced from the realities of the harsh world they live in. Reform is now the representative party of the working family, striving for the same things as the people are. You cannot dismiss this poll. It's a mega poll and it shows Nigel Farage will hold the balance of power, making him the most powerful of all the leaders. But this is now, and the trend is with Reform UK. I expect Reform UK to surge ahead of Labour and the Tories in the coming years. Nigel Farage will be the next Prime Minister. There will be no shock with Cooper losing her seat though. The job's too big for her, blaming Amazon for knife crime while people are losing their lives daily, country swamped with immigration. Shock poll? I'd be shocked even if there was only half a chance of her keeping it, along with the rest of them. Never has so much damage been done by so few to so many. Thanks Winnie, hope you don't mind. Oh please make it be so. To see Rayner lose her seat to Reform would make my day. She's made her money and whatever happens shall be sent to Lords for another gravy train. British politics. She lost something else all those years back when she was 15 years old behind the old bike shed. She will never get back. Could lose seat to Reform. A person of her uneducated bullishness has no business being in government to start with. Oh, the pain of that prospect. No longer will her cultured intelligent words fill our day with her solutions to our problems. Her loss to the nation can only mean that it will be a gain to her local bike shed community. Go Angie, go.